everyone online and in person. My name is Carla. Wait, we also have a lovely picture, no? Here. My name is Carla. I work at TUDEF in the Netherlands as a trainer in research data methodologies and digital skills for the RDS team.
Yeah, so today we will be talking about the creative use of data. So I know everybody here is all about data, but what is beyond data? What can we do with data that is still mostly about engagement, but also about trying to make it a bit more interesting for everybody who doesn't know anything about data? So today in our session, we'll talk about data representation in history. So look at a few examples all around the world of how data representation had an impact in history. Then we'll have beautiful speakers to inspire us. And then we'll talk about brainstorming with the potential of this becoming an interest group or working group within RDA. So you can go with the, this is us. Again, this is us. And we'll talk about data representation in history. Do you know this guy? Somebody know this guy? So this is Augustus, a Roman emperor that was in place around 400 before Christ, so a while ago. He decided that data representation was important, not only for political use or military use, as you might guess, but mostly for commercial use. What you see on this side, you see it very small, but I hope people online can kind of look at it and zoom in. This is a map of the municipes. Municipes are municipalities in ancient Rome. What it did, it asked its explorers to go around all of the known part of the world that was back then the Roman Empire, and figure out important points in the map. So where people could stop to have a bath, where people could feel safe, where people could stop to gather food, and use this map to the point that this map became very important. So it was stolen multiple times. It was ripped off in different pieces. And now you see the 8 different pieces put together. This was finally be possible only 2,000 years later, when this map was not that relevant anymore, and they managed to put it together. So this map tells you a little bit of history of how commercial maps or commercial visualization was important, to the point that this got stolen and was shared around the empire. Here you have a representation of something very weird. This is a multi-level information map. So basically, this guy, Minard, was part of the Napoleon mission in the 1800s. And Napoleon asked him to figure out what happened, what went wrong during the expedition to Moscow. He kept losing. Well, after that, he realized that he lost so many people during the battle, but he didn't understand how it was possible because these people were equipped. So he said, let's ask an infographic expert back then to figure it out. And he said, well, we're going to create a map that is in 3 levels. So the yellow part, this is actually a geographic map. The little stripes that you see, they're the rivers. So this is the actual, it starts in Paris and it ends in Moscow. So the yellow part, the yellow stripe, is the amount of soldiers. And you see, it shrinks all the way to Moscow. And the black stripe is the amount of soldiers that made it back. And you see how it shrinks all the way there. In the bottom part, that is actually a graph as we know it today. And that indicates the temperature. So what he did was with this map, he put together so many information that actually informed Napoleon that people were dying on the way there based on the location, how dangerous was in that location, so which battles happened in this span of time, and also in the location. And yeah, the proximity to rivers that were frozen, of course, so it was more dangerous, and the temperature going down. So yeah, so this map is like the first multi-level map that we know of. I think most of you might know this person. This is Florence Nightingale. She was, yeah, not only one of the first nurses and the medical doctors, but also she was one of the first cartographers and the inventor of the pie chart. So what you see here, this is a pie chart, and this was used for, it was useful for her to inform about the loss in the army of 1856, 1855, 1856 battle. And she wanted to inform the people, the generals, about why people were dying, because everybody thought people were dying because they were getting attacked or wounded during the battle. And she said, actually, no, I'm going to show you when and how people died. And so she made this pie chart, and the blue part are so the blue part are the loss due to lack of medications, so lack of prevention. So those were all of the people that could have been saved if there would have been enough prevention and medication in the camp. The black one are people that, yeah, just lost their lives due to other illnesses. And only a very small part, the red part, are the people that were actually wounded in the battles. She used this to create a social reform. And after this, a few years later, a few battles later, the Red Cross was created. This is a very beautiful representation. This is a physical representation for communal use. So this was invented, this is a stick chart. Have you ever seen anything like this? No, right? So the stick chart was invented by population in Micronesia. And this chart was created by explorers of the sea to support people canoeing in the rivers and in the sea. So basically what they did, the explorers, the people that knew better, they will go in the sea and they will create this stick chart by using the straight sticks, mean recurring currents, recurring waves. The how can I say, curved sticks were, yeah, a little bit swells and things that were at the bottom of the sea that people had to avoid. And the little seashells, the white parts, they're little islands that people needed to avoid. So what they did, they created several of these maps, and they will give it to explorers and to people that needed to navigate the sea beforehand, and they need to memorize it and then give it back. So this comes from the Library of Australia. There are like more or less 6 or 7 of these maps, and it's a mnemonic device used for communal use. So this is another way of doing data representation. Here you see another use of data representation. This is personal use. This is very, I think, it's very beautiful because very few people know about this. This was created by the Yucatana people, and it was a mnemonic device for women. So women used to get this cord when they were born. And they will use this cord and they will make knots every 25 years of their life. And within these knots, there were other little knots to basically present important things that happened in their life. They had a child, or they got married, or something happened within their family, good or bad, they used to make a knot. And this was very personal to the point that nobody could decipher it. It was, everybody will make it in a different color or put something on it. And when they will become older and maybe lose a little bit of their memory, they will use this to tell their stories. Women used to be bored with their story memory bowl. That's how it's translated. what we wanted to tell you with all of this is that data representation is not only relevant because it gives us something practical, but it has so many different ways to tell a story. And oops, you missed one. You missed one. Yes. Okay, it got lost. Fine. There was another one, but I'll tell you about it later, maybe. So this is more about art and society. So this is the first data representation of video data representation of wind. So two artists, Fernanda Viegas and Mark Wittenberg, they came up with this idea of representing wind. Wind is something that nobody kind of knows where it starts from. So it's a bit poetic. And the idea is to represent wind, the impact of wind in the United States. So it's a live map. You can go on the website, you can see how the winds are going in the United States. And this was also the first digital representation that ended up as an artifact at MoMA in New York. I think a lot of you might know about this one. This created a lot of criticism because this is the work of an amazing artist and data curator, Rafik Anadol. And this is the first AI-generated art piece that ended up in MoMA. And this is priceless. But I wanted to tell you what it is about. So this is about merging images and basically creating a software, feeding the images of all of the artifacts that ever been presented in MoMA, and then put together and create an artwork where you cannot see the single pieces of data or the single artifacts, but you see the feeling. And this is the first immersive AI-generated art piece that ended up at MoMA. And after this, a lot more have been created. But this has the the power of immersive experience. So as you can see, basically it's a square and people stand in front of the square. There is first a representation of the data, so people get to know a little bit what it is about. And then they basically stand in front of it and they get immersed by this flow of data. And it's constantly changing because it's AI generated. So this instead is another type of data representation, is actually an interactive tool. So this interactive tool has been created by the Coldmo brother. It's a studio that wanted to raise awareness about climate change, and they came up with a font. You know, fonts are something that we don't really feel very personal. We don't really feel like personal attachment to fonts. It's just something you select because it looks prettier, I guess, for your presentation. But this time they created a font based on the amount of CO2 that was present in the air. So if you see the C is the amount of CO2 that was released in the air in 1979. And on the top, you see a little mountain, right? That is data collected by the Snow Institute in US. It's the amount of snow present in that period of time. While you go further in the chart, in the font chart, you see that the amount of CO2 that represents the thickness of the letters grows, but also it gets melted because it's connected to the data of the melting snow. So by the end of the font, there is almost nothing. It's almost unrecognizable. So this is a font that is publicly available. You can download it in Google Font, and you can use it every time you want to represent climate change in your projects. Yes. This is very personal to me. This is Queer in the Map, is a project that has been created by Luca La Rochelle, which is a data artist, but also an overall queer artist, quite well known in the world. He decided to collect all of the stories of the queer people around the world by creating an interactive map. So we're going back to the beginning when I told you about the Roman Empire map. So he actually used a word map and he asked queer people to put a pin in whatever part of the word they wanted to tell a story. And the goal of this map is to make queer people feel less lonely around the world. Some people put a pin in the middle of the ocean because they don't know where things happen in their life. And some people really put it in the little village. This is a screenshot of the map in San Jose. And there are already a lot of pins in San Jose, to the point that in 2023, a bigger working group decided to get together and re-support and redevelop the software because there were more than, I think, 100,000 pins in the word map, and it was not even possible to load it again. So this is a living project, and it's very important for the communities around the world. I suggest you to look it up and maybe look at your city and see how it feels. Yeah. So now we're gonna get a little bit inspired. I hope that I inspired you a little bit with these stories of data representation and visualization already. But we have 3 amazing speakers with us today, coming from different parts of the world and different types of experiences that are going to join online. So I hope everything goes smoothly. Please be patient if it doesn't. Yeah. So Yu Yang is a data visualization specialist. She works at the University of Vienna in a specialized lab where artists and researchers work together. This is a very forward-thinking project, and I would like to introduce you Liu to present her work.
Now I can start, or
Yes,
you need? Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay. I need to share my slides and send the request. Yeah. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, very well. Yes, we can see everything and we can hear you.
Okay, then let's start. Thanks. So my name is Liu Yang. You can call me Liu as well. And I'm a visualization researcher and faculty at the Complexity Science Hub. I'm also lead the visual team there. A little bit about myself. My background is information and data visualization. I studied in Northeastern University, where I get this opportunity to work with their local transportation agency to create database tools there. And after that, I moved to Singapore. And there I worked with MIT Sensible City Lab office there. And later I worked with Singapore Chinese newsroom there to create data-driven stories. And a few years ago, I moved to Vienna and joined Complexity Science Hub. And the Complex Science Hub is a home to over 70 researchers, and we have 15 topics in complex systems. And if you're interested in our institution, you can scan this QR code and read more about our people and our research topics. You can also find our visualizations on our website. And we create interactive web-based visualizations for communicating our research, basically scientific research results, and making sure that our research is meaningful for both experts, but also for the general public. And one of the typical projects I want to show you is this, the whole picture. It's a cartographic visualization exploring global supply chain dependency. One of chapter is about food product shocks in countries due to supply disruptions. And we call it whole picture because we look at both direct and indirect effects. For the direct effects, it's a simple. It's like if country A directly trade with Ukraine, and then if Ukraine cannot supply this goods, and then country A will be shocked in these goods. But we also can consider this network, trade network effects, meaning if country A rely on country B, but country B import those goods from Ukraine. So when country B cannot get those goods, and country A will also be shocked. And then we also consider those production processes, like if a shortage of maize impacts milk and beef production in country A. So those approach allows us to look at more comprehensive image of the global supply chain, but also challenging us to visualize 192 countries and 123 food products, and which means we have 192 times 123 kinds of simulation scenarios, and also similar amount of shocks for each scenario. But in the end, we managing to create a map that allows us to stop producing one particular product in a particular country, and you can see which products will be affected more in which country on this map. And another project I want to share is that that we create a network visualization for the job transitions. So this is the shocks in labor market, where here each job type of job are represented as a tree leaves here, and you can see some jobs we identify them will grow consistently in the future, and some just temporarily. Of course, some jobs will be phased out in the future. And this helps us illustrate how workers can switch between jobs if their demand changes in their labor market. And we also create storytelling to work through some key insights from this research, including the analysis about this labor market frictions, and make sure that the data or our research results are not just displayed, but also explained. And we also create educational visual tutorials. For example, this one is for agent-based modeling. So we want to help people understand or even learn those methods from those visualizations. So typically at the Complexity Hub, our workflow is we have, of course, scientists who are dealing with research and data, and then they will bring those results and story to our visual team. And we have designers. Actually, we have designer also have coding skills, so we will design and develop those stories together. And then we have visualization communication team who will pack the things together and share with our public and media. And you can see here from this flow, there's already many kinds of roles involved. Like we have scientists, we have designers, developers, and we can communicators, basically a journalist here. So this actually inspired me to adopt a more interdisciplinary approach, and by gathering more different kinds of talents from outside of our institution, like artists, journalists, analysts, and also some researchers that outside from the complexity science. And then we're teaming up and make them collaborate on visualizations for our research. And precisely to do that, I actually organized visualizing complexity science workshops. We did this for 2 years. We basically brought those talents from around the world to Vienna for 5 days. And here you can see this icon represent one participant from this year. And many of them came from very mixed backgrounds. That's what we want. And then we also invite our resident researchers to present one of their work with data sets and as a hands-on projects and for those participants. And then they can team it up and mix together and work on visualization for those specific topics. And this year, we also partnered with the artists from the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. And they brought us the art workstations like pen platters, LED lights, and generative AI, also artist mentorship. And those participants, and in the end, they came up with very diverse ideas. For example, one team, they create a children bedtime book, and another team, they integrate the sonification into the visualization. So you can also listen to the data while watching visualization. And both are telling us a story about the tree competition in a forest, which is it's actually is a simulation of the modeling of those tree growth and death. And this year, we have one team focused on physicalization. Here, they use these LED lights to represent the supply chains here. See, they make this globe. And they had another team, they create embodied performance. Here, every person acts as a node in your network, and they need to pass down information to their connected nodes. And by the end, they can learn what is network inequality from their own perspective of nodes. So those ideas are very preliminary because they only have 5 days, but they are already very inspiring for us to understand what could be possible. I hope you also got inspired. And if you want to learn more, we were gonna have our workshop next year, and you can scan this QR code to follow up. And also, we are currently open to summer intern applications. If you want to get involved, you can feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liu.
Thank you.
There was an applause, by the way. I don't know if you heard it.
Hmm?
So I just wanted to tell you that there was an applause and maybe you didn't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody has a question? Yes, I'm going to give you the mic.
So hello there, Mateus here
Hello.
from the European XFEL in Hamburg. I do have a question. So I was browsing through your website, and are these projects, these dashboards, open source? Because I saw there's quite some public funding. And for instance, I'm interested in looking how you build this in the first place, right? What are the technologies you're using? How people coded this in the first place, and I could not find a repository. So are these dashboards open source?
The codes for dashboard itself are not open sourced, but all our research and their data process are open sourced. You can find.
Okay.
And we don't have actually very complicated technology behind. We just use JavaScript basically.
So it's basically React and going.
We don't even use React.
No, what you're using then, if may I ask?
We just use JavaScript. I mainly use D3, and we have a couple of projects to use WebGL, but they are all open libraries, so we don't use framework also.
Okay, I was thinking there was a library behind it because they look very nice.
No.
So yeah.
No,
Anyway.
it's basically made from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes.
So congratulations about this software. I think it's about very interactive. And my question is about how do you select the data? Okay, and when you are placing all the model of every I don't know how to say that, but variable. But it's about the selection of the data, because I think it's a very very complex process or difficult process. But and that's my question. Yes.
Yeah, so it can be complicated, and but usually since we already have a research behind, so we will usually focus on what is the main contribution in this research. For example, if you visualize job market, there's like employment size and media average income. But if you just visualize that data set, it's not the main contribution from this research. The main contribution from our research will be how the jobs will be shocked and how they can switch to other jobs. And so then we know this is something we want to focus, and then we will build our story around that. Is that?
Okay. Yes, yes. Yeah, it's about, because I am interested in every the process, because you have a lot of variables and a lot of points that it's interdisciplinary thing, that it's a lot of stuff. But we have this you have this process, then very very specific, and this is the main point that I can see in all the chart. Yes, all the charts.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you
mean,
very much.
I have a little trick is if you have a research and then you can read the abstract. And abstract usually have a structure about our main contribution is what, and so that's the key point. But I also had experience that they told me, okay, this is our main contribution, but when I read through their paper, I found like labor market friction, which is actually not their initial idea they want to put in the visuals. But I found this is a very interesting story behind. So then I added there. So this is always that play around together to see how to make this story more unique. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else has a question? If somebody online has a question, you can drop it in the comments or in the chat, and we can pick it up from there. So we're going to go forward. Thank you so much, Liu. I really appreciate your presentation. Thanks a lot. Feel free to stay along with us and look at the other presentations. If there are more questions for Liu, you can also ask them later. Okay, now we have our second speaker, Leticia Pozza. She's the founder of Odd Studio, which is a studio that has different, as a headquarter in Brazil, but also has works from all around the world. And she supports researchers and also government to make data available and visually available. Hi, Leticia.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
You can share your screen.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to talk a little bit before sharing my screen, if that's okay. Then I'm going to share
Absolutely.
the elements and everything there is. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Brazilian, as Alessandra said, but I live in Spain. I'm now in the Netherlands. I'm very cold and very jealous of all of you wearing t-shirts over there. I was not born for this. Anyway, as a good Latina. So Odd Studio was founded on the idea and on the objective of supporting researchers. It all started when I had the opportunity of supporting the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation and the Brazilian Ministry of Health into starting a whole ecosystem around how we could better use a huge cohort of data that we have in Brazil. So Brazil, as you all know, is a big country, and we say that a continental country with continental problems, but continental wonders. And because of a program that started more than 10 years ago, which is called Bolsa Familia, which is a program that is supported by the government and that helps people in situations of vulnerability, we have very granular data on every individual that is part of this program. So we're talking about more than 100 million people over the course of 10 years of their life and the development of their families, which is something that not a lot of countries of low and middle income countries have in a comparison. So this was a really interesting challenge. And once I got to be a part of the selection process, I also got to be a part of the supporting these researchers somehow communicate this work to policymakers. And I think that every time that you have multiple stakeholders or you have multiple audiences, you really struggle into understanding what is the objective, because researchers, usually when you ask them what is the objective of their work and who they are intending to actually communicate their work to, their first answer is to everyone, because my work is important for everyone. And we know that that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes, yes, it is important for a lot of people, but not necessarily for everyone. So just to give you an example, there was one project specifically, which is a project on this gestational weight gain. And this project is supports women that are pregnant women go through discovering and understanding if their weight is within the limits of what can avoid having complications, both for them and for that baby in the future. And before this program started, there was this researcher in Brazil, Gilberto Cac. He's very famous in this area. He has been studying this for 20 years. And all of his work up until this point hasn't been published because the curve or the chart that was being used, which is called Atala curve, which is, I think he is a researcher from Chile that implemented this. The data that he had to implement that was actually from Europe. So we were all using for many, many years to evaluate the weight gain of pregnant women in Brazil. We were actually using data from Europe, which does not necessarily translate to the information and to the needs of our population. So our challenge and our support, and honestly, when I started the company, I thought I was going to have a company with a bunch of data scientists, but I realized soon enough that the problem was not necessarily on understanding the data and on doing the calculations for the data, but on communicating that data properly to different stakeholders. And what we had to understand was how do women actually look at this information, and how do mothers to be are going to interpret this? And most importantly, what is the type of tool that doctors, because it's actually doctors that are going to use this, need? Because sometimes, yes, a research paper is important, but it is important to validate the work. It is important for your work to be replicable. It is important for you to be to have peer-on-peer review, and for you to have all of the support of the scientific community behind you. But it is not what necessarily doctors are going to use on a daily basis, and definitely is not what's going to go on a Ministry of Health booklet, for example, for women's. So I don't know if everyone knows, but in Brazil we have a universal healthcare system, which actually tends to all of the population. If you go to Brazil, break a leg, you're going to be supported by the system as well. So what we needed to come up with is how are we going to visualize this information and how we're going to show that. And I think that part of the work was also understanding how to translate it to other people. So very quickly, I can show you like the final results of how it became to us. But I think that when you say right now that every child that is born in Brazil has gone through at least every child that is born within the public health system goes through a chart that you created, I think it's pretty cool, with all due respect, with the lack of formal language. Let me see if I can show it to you. Here you go. So I don't know if you're seeing it. Can you see? No? Give me a second.
Not yet.
I think it's because of my... because Zoom is... Yeah, I think my Zoom is not gonna like, because it's updated, and now I would have to close everything and start again. It's fine. I can send you the link. I have it available, and then we can send all of the links to you in a second. Don't worry about it. So this is one of the projects that we worked with. We actually developed and designed how these charts were going to be shown. We did both the booklet, and then I think one of the interesting things about it is that you never realize when you're doing something digital, that when you're going to translate that into something physical, you are going to have multiple other challenges attached to it. So for example, every year the ministry releases 2 million copies of this, if I'm not mistaken. But some of the cities that are very, very small municipalities in Brazil, we have more than 5,000 municipalities. They receive only one copy. And what they do is that they Xerox it. So they do a copy of all of them. So all of the colors that we imagined for these charts will actually have to be like foolproof of like Xeroxing it multiple and multiple times. So it was just a designer going around trying to find the oldest Xerox machine that they could find in order for them to actually find a way, a solution and a way to show this in grayscale so it would still be replicable. So those are some of the challenges that you face when you go to something that is as big as a country and as diverse as a country as Brazil. And then one of the other challenges that we had and one of the other things that we did was we really needed a project to get started because it's really hard for researchers in general to understand what's possible within a universe that they have no idea how to use or how to work. So here's my, I would say, tip or my suggestion on when you're starting to work with researchers, but you don't really know how to do it, or you don't really know the best way to do it. You're not being able to convince them into doing it. I usually use this technique, which is trying to show a little bit of what's possible for some of them. And whoever gives me attention, I will work with that person first. Because I know that there is some work that is, I'm going to quote unquote here, is more important or could impact more people. But if you don't have research to support you, and if you don't have the data and the people to support you, it's really hard for you as a designer or even as a technologist to be able to implement that in a way that's going to be used, because you will need the support of everyone. So what I usually do is I find someone that I can use as an example. And I think that we were able to do that. In the first 6 months of the project, we were able to develop a tool that I can share here in the chat and you can navigate for yourself. It's called imapi.org. And imapi is basically imapi is basically a tool that supports is .org. Yeah. It is basically a tool that understands and looks at all of the different ways in which a city or a municipality is more or less suitable for the development of children. And I think that that is something really interesting because it was never calculated in that way. And we looked at many different ways in which we could show it. And because we were showing this very, very granular information in a sense, more than 100 indicators for all of the 6,000 municipalities, they wanted to make this into a book. They wanted to print it and put it into a book, because why not show 6,000 tables of data if someone wants to check if their city and where their city needs to improve when you're developing for children. And we were able to convince them to turn it into an interactive website. And I think that that is something that really got us moving forward with the projects. And we were finally able to have more people get on board with the idea of communicating their work in different ways. And this is just one of the examples of the projects that we did. I think another project that I'm really proud of is also Contando os Dias. So Contando os Dias, which I'm also putting here in the chat, is a project that we did to fight the cesarean epidemic. So Brazil has a huge cesarean epidemic, like we're the second or third, I think, with the most amount of cesareans in the world. And that is a big health problem, and it's a systemic problem. And so working with Professor Carmen Diniz, we came up with this idea of showing a calculator that was not necessarily going to give the due date. Because a problem with online calculators right now is all of them actually give a date that is not, it gives up to 14 days of error. Like not more, but actually less. So this means that people are losing, or children are losing days. And this is a whole issue, again, with the private system that we have as well, with wanting to do, there's this thing that Professor Carmen studies, which is too much too soon, too little too late that we do when we're talking about birth interventions. So there are many issues related to this that have been accumulating over the years. So women just go online and they research for a due date calculator and it gives them the wrong date. So what we wanted to do is to show that it's actually a period, and we wanted to be able to translate that into not necessarily just weeks or months, but also into days, and showing that every day actually counts. And you should be aware that the date that maybe your doctor is talking about and they are putting a lot of pressure on you to deliver on that day, it's not really backed up by science anymore. Science has other things right now and is studying it in other ways. So these are just some of the examples of the projects we were able to translate and to do. Some of them are simpler in terms of how we deliver. They are more like presentations or visual aspects, and some of them are more interactive or even physical. We have continuously been working with the government, and we're still developing bigger and bigger projects, which I'm really proud of. You can check it on our website, and I'm here for questions. But when you are working for impact, and when you're going from data to impact, you are going to be talking to a lot of different peoples in this chain. And it's not just about the technology. It's not just about the design. It's about what's in it for them. So what does the researcher get with this? What does the policymaker get with this? What does the population get with this? And if you're clear on all of those elements and all of those people, it's way better and way simpler for you actually to convince them to giving you the attention you need, so you can move forward with your work and you can develop and do things as amazing as we have seen here so far, and we're probably going to see with other people. So I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought, and I'm definitely here if you need me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leticia. So somebody has a question? Yes?
So, hi Leticia, thank you for your talk. It was very nice. I'm also Brazilian, so that's why I'm a little bit curious. As what I see from your projects, they are super impactful and super important for the Brazilian society to understand data in the first place. I think that's awesome. But I see as
Thank
well
you.
that your main customer apparently is the government of Brazil.
Yes.
So I would like to ask you, how do you see political scenarios that are constantly changing in Brazil can affect your work, and what are the ways of overcoming this and continue doing it? So
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. That's a great question. Yeah, I think two things from that. Definitely they affect, but I've learned to appreciate and to admire researchers and technicians from our Ministry of Health way more than I think I did before working with them, because it doesn't really matter what's happening. They're always trying to do their best and they're always trying to get it right for the population. And I think that that's amazing. We have really talented and really admirable people. So in Brazil, it's different. You have the politicians and you have the technical crew that works for the government. These people here are really qualified. These people here are trying to get their they're trying to get the spotlight. They're trying to be highlighted all the time, and they're doing some work, of course. But oops, am I still here? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay, I don't see the image of that. And so these people are really qualified and they're really good at what they're doing. So my work and my worry was that I could give them whatever they needed for it, regardless of what was happening in the political issue, because we have been through the worst, I would say, and not necessarily the best, but I think we have been through the worst during the pandemic and everything as well. But how to navigate that is something that I have learned, that the biggest problem is actually the constant changing power, because you need sponsorship and you need people that will support you, and the lack of continuation of information, mostly like the information does not continue forward. You lose a lot of people. So I have gained a lot of resilience and a lot of patience into having to re-explain the importance of the work we were doing over and over and over again, no matter how many times, because the person in power would always change. So that's the first one. Keep records and don't, like, I have a mentor that says that sometimes you think you're repeating yourself, but some people still go watch Madonna to hear her sing like a virgin. And that's true. Like sometimes you have to go and do the basics all over again. And it's important for you to put everyone in the same page. And finally, I would say that there are some specific things related to how you navigate those scenarios that you're going to have to give in order for you to get something back. So for example, when working with some of the data related to the pregnancy issues, we did all of the study on colors. And because the government of Bolsonaro really liked the flag colors, they changed all of the colors. Our colors were accessible, our colors were Xerox proof, but they changed it all to the colors of the flag because they wanted to be more resilient. And sometimes you have to give in and adapt because you want your work to move forward, because you know they can impact a lot of people, even though you're going to lose a little bit in the process. And also, we really wanted to put data on abortion in some of the projects. We really wanted to work with that. We had very sensitive information and very important information on abortion, but we were prohibited to work with that data. In a sense, it wasn't really clear, like no one said that, but no one would let us move forward with that data set. But at the same time, we knew, yeah.
I'm sorry, Leticia, we're like out of time a little bit.
Oh, okay,
We
sorry,
have
yeah,
to,
of course.
Thank you so much for your answers.
Thank
you so
you.
much for everything. You can find Leticia online. She's going to stick around for a little bit. So if you have other questions you think of, you can always let us know and we'll pick it up. Thanks a lot. So our next speaker is Roxana. Technical issues. Roxana, can you see us or hear us?
Hi, Ale. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You can present your slides if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you have to. Ciao, Roxana. So Roxana is an information specialist. She's originally from Peru, but she's been working at the University of Madrid. We met with her because she came as a fellow for a project at TU Delft, and we had a chance to get to know each other. And yeah, she will bring a different perspective today. And yeah, let's hear it from her.
Okay, thank you, Ale. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, Creative Overuse of Data. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
yes, we can see your slides, yeah.
Okay. So I will introduce myself. I am Roxana Cerda Cosme. I am Associate Professor and PhD student in Library Science at Universidad Carlos III de Madrid. I studied the master's degree in libraries and digital continuity at the same university. And I have a bachelor degree in library and information science at Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos in Lima, Peru. Now I am the member of Open Science Lab Meta Research for Open Science that belong to the Library and Information Science Department and UC3M. Currently, I work as editorial coordinator of medical journal at CTO Editorial. My research interests are open science, research data, sharing, reproducibility, and verification of research data. And I leave my email here for contact on my academia social network. Okay, now let's start. I want to start by talking about this union about art and data. Art and data are two different forms of expression, both with an important social impact and the result of creativity and research. The art always has been a tool for humanity to make an effort to understand the world, and data is the raw material that is produced during the life cycle of research. The union of the two allows us to understand, make visible the invisible world of data that surround us in our society. So, art using data is an artistic practice that is based on the use of data of set of data, to communicate motion to the audience. As we can see, two pictures of the Nexum project, where the participant can understand in an interactive way the research, and it's a joint work between artists and researchers. The art installation has an objective truth because it's based on data. Its construction is based on data and not only on the inspiration and imagination of the artist. The idea is to communicate emotion to the audience by sharing ideas or stories hidden in the data in an accessible and creative way. I have emphasis the word accessible because it's the first step in being able to work with the data. Make the data accessible. In some contexts, this point remains a problem to be solved, but be careful because it doesn't mean that all the data must be accessible. Remember the phrase as open as possible, as close as necessary. So the question now is, what are the challenges around openness and sharing of research data? Let's start by saying that they are a crisis in the reproducibility of research, because in the paper published in Nature affirmed that more than 17% of researchers have tried and failed to reproduce another scientific experiments, and more than half have failed to reproduce their own experience. The study found that there are variability in an analysis and methodology. The highest percentage of rewards are focused on the publication of research results, but few rewards are given the researcher to publishing the research data. When the data are published, are reproduced to verify the analysis and the methodology, the results are not the same, or the result may be falsified. In other cases, the data are published on the university on site, for example, and without a unique and persistent identifier. The result of this access to the data with broken links, and you can access the data, for example. Another challenges is lack of skill and training in data management, reproducibility, and data sharing. There is still a lack of training on how to manage research data. That is evident in paper, for example, to continue to share data as supplementary material. And in the acknowledgement of the paper, for example, or the same time, create account a multidisciplinary data repository to publish tables or graph of tabulate data as if it were raw data. There is information about this kind of training you can find in different platforms or webs, but it's not just matter of publishing manuals, because also creating training spaces within university, institute, or research centers to build a community of researchers' commitment to open science. Next challenge is lack of accessibility to research data. An important detail is just because the data is online, it doesn't mean that it's accessible. These two pictures describe for me this phrase very well. While doing your research, try to keep an order many times data and only understood by those who create it or maybe who work with it. There is a lack of knowledge about how to manage data during our research, how to elaborate a data management plan, for example, or how to structure and name data folders, or maybe use the version control, etc. The point is, accessibility is not about publishing data in a repository. It's applying a skill to manage our data. If we don't have these skills, it will be difficult to make our data accessible. Next challenge is it's necessary to create a workflow on open science practices. Here are 3 pictures showing 3 different ways. The first way is a traditional way. Next way is a Google way. And the last one is open science way. Now, I ask you following question. Is in your research, or maybe when you training your researchers, which way do you use? I leave the question in the air to continue with my next challenge. For example, next challenge is about, this challenge is the most important for me because it's lack in infrastructure and reward for publishing research data. In the last few years, the rewards to develop infrastructure around the data have increased, but currently research funding by public funds has been made to include a data management plan, for example, here in Spain, but reward for publication or research data have no increases, for example. The last challenge is implementation of FAIR principle. The last challenge is to make the data fair data. For this, we need more training on what it is, what it means, how to apply it, for example, and you make the data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And finally, I would like to say the union of art and data can be seen as a way to democratize data. It's a connection between data, art, and research data, making the scientific side of data art more available to non-scientific audience and making research easily available to a new audiences. This is all. Thank you. Ale, I have problem because I couldn't listen.
Four data sets from the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands, Twente University, Eindhoven, TU Delft, and Wageningen. They're 4 very technical, very different and technical universities. So they have different focuses. For example, Wageningen is only about agriculture and animal data. And the Twente is mostly about robotics. So we decided to cherry pick 4 data sets, and we curated the data set, the data, so we made it a little bit more slim and more accessible. And then we opened a call for artists, asking artists to basically come up with an idea of how to represent those data. The very important thing about the data sets is that, well, you can see it here a little bit. This is a little spin-off. The top the top right data set, the one that looks like a centipede, is actually data visualization of a box being thrown by over and over by a robot. So this robot has been developed by the University of Eindhoven. The goal of this throwing box robot was to make transportation a little bit easier. So humans didn't have to literally carry a box, but they tried to teach a robot how to throw a box in a very predictable way. I'm using this example because the artist came up with a very fun thing to show. He decided to take the data of all of the wrong throws of the robot. So every time the robot was throwing the box wrong, he would visualize a piece of that data, and he came up with actually a sculpture of all of the missed opportunities. And it was very interesting to see. In general, I think people had fun looking at it. The other one was an architecture. The one that looks like a mosque is actually digital 3D of a mosque. This is an architecture-inspired data set, and it talks about the impact of objects and monuments in each neighborhood. So what does a mosque mean for the presence of a mosque mean for the neighborhood? What does the presence of a supermarket mean for a neighborhood? All of these things, all of this information, this is qualitative data, has been collected by a couple of researchers, and the artists decided to make a 3D version of the neighborhood where you could select the point of view of the person living in the neighborhood, and the element that would light up was the element that was the most interesting for that neighbor. So it was a physical data visualization of the neighborhood based on the interaction between the monument and the person. So a very political perspective of data visualization. The bottom right is actually a map of the Netherlands. So basically for the past 40 years, the government of the Netherlands, through Wageningen University, decided to collect data, satellite data of the expansion of urban areas in the country. So the Netherlands is a ridiculously small country, coming from Italy. Yeah, it's like 2 regions of Italy. But it changed so much over the past 40 years. So the artists picked up on the elements, the parts of the cities and the parts of the greenhouses that have been developing so much over the past 40 years, and made a very weird visualization that was then scattered by a laser to highlight the things that have been changing the most over the past 40 years. And the last one is actually, the data was collected by a group of researchers that collected data for about 5 years about how easy it is to fall or difficult it is to fall when you walk slowly. Is it easier to fall if you walk slowly, or is it better to walk faster? The research was mostly meant for healthcare reasons, and then the next step in the next step of the research, they developed a metal exoskeleton for people that went through surgery and they were recovering. So basically, the artists picked up on the data and created a digital humanoid with an interface that you could touch and you could push and pull. And you could see how easy it was for the humanoid to fall and to recover based on the speed. It was a sensation at the exhibition. All of the kids were just playing to see how fast the humanoid will fall. Not just the kids, exactly. These are the 4 artists that helped us through the process. And basically, because we wanted to we created an exhibition of 4 days. What we did is that we said, okay, we don't really only want to have the artists, we really want to connect to the audience. So we invited 4 performers, 4 different performing arts, to interpret the data and bring an extra level of interest for the public. So each day of the exhibition, we had a performer using the same data that the artists used to actually involve the public. And the performances were completely different from the artwork. Some of them were kind of connected to the artworks and some of them not, but it was really the freedom. We gave a lot of freedom to the performers to come up with what they wanted. Some of them were, one of those was actually a laser installation. One of the artists came up with a musical instrument she created herself based on the software that could control the humanoid. So she was making the humanoid move through the instrument that she created. The exhibition lasted only 4 days. We had over 300 people coming through. And the most beautiful thing of the exhibition was to see artists, researchers, students, family members coming to the exhibition. And I have like a memory that is very close to my heart of the mother of a researcher that came, and for the first time she said, I can actually see what your research is about. I had absolutely no idea what you were doing beforehand, and now I see it. So this is the power of data representation, and this is why it's very important for us to try to keep going with this project and maybe create an interest group out of it to see if we can collect more data sets, more data, more visual representations of the data sets from all around the world. Yes? And that's it. We have questions. Oh, yeah, okay. First, I will give you the mic.
Hi, I'm Jenny Evans from University of Westminster in the UK. So we're doing quite a lot of work around capturing creative practice research in repositories and building a standard in this space. And so my question is around, you've had this exhibition. How did you capture or record what was going on? Have you been able to put it in a repository? Is it more, how did you document and capture the research and the activities, I guess?
So we had, so the whole process, I didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, but now that you ask, so the whole process has been recorded by us, meaning that each step of the process was followed by a curator, a data curator and an art curator. We had a group of data stewards supporting both the artists and the researchers in the process. And we had checkpoints with the artists and the researchers, making sure their ideas will match. So it was like a constant work of over 1 year. We had workshops with the researchers and the artists and the data stewards to make sure that everything was aligned. And during the exhibition, we had a live recording of all of the exhibition, and we had pictures and collected feedback by the audience. Sorry, I have to do these other parts of mine.
And just quickly then, so but where is that information now? Is it?
So that information is now curated. We're finalizing a report that is then going to be shared on our website. You can imagine it's a lot of information, so we're taking some time. The exhibition happened just a few months ago, so now we're thinking of releasing it in a few months, trying to find a shape that makes sense. Because it's a lot, but it will be released on our website. Anybody else? Yeah. Just take a chance to run to you.
Hi, Sharon, Pacific Northwest National Lab. And you kind of answered this question while answering Jenny, but I'm going to ask it explicitly anyway. How engaged were the researchers who created the data with this whole process?
Yeah, that's actually a very nice question. I think the researchers were super engaged because they were chosen. And actually, this was for them a rewarding of their publication. So we kind of use this system, we are testing this as a rewarding system as well. All of the researchers received all of the information beforehand. They chose to participate. And afterwards, all of the pictures, all of the 3D, all of the things that were connected, the artistic connection between the research and the actual artifact was given to them. So they were involved from the beginning. They decided together with the artist which piece of their data set was worth sharing. And after that, they had all of the information, and most of them used the pictures of the artifacts as as part of their publication. You're welcome. Anybody else? Anybody online? Anyone online has questions, you can drop it in the chat. Okay. This is the really last bit of this conversation, and I wanted to invite you to just be part of it, because we have this idea of creating an interest group about data visualization and data representation, and we think that's something that can really help a lot of researchers also to feel rewarded. And because it has a lot of connection with the data stewards groups and all of the people that are somehow part of research, but maybe are not really rewarded or seen in all of their support, we would like to try to ask you a couple of questions. So I think in couples, if you can turn to the person that is close to you, we would like to, I don't know, you can figure it out. And for the people online, you can also think about it by yourself. There are just a few questions. One is, inspired by the cases, think of a topic, field, or research you think is worth to be represented with art. I will just give you a minute. So I'm gonna stop you right now to just drop you. I love that there's a lot of conversation going on. I'm gonna stop you just for one more question. And you've seen a lot of representation types. You've seen charts, you've seen fonts, you've seen videos, you've seen a lot of things. But what do you think would be the best way to represent the type of data you are talking about right now? I'm just going to give you a minute to just think about it, and then I'm going to ask you to share what you thought of. This is, again, just a brainstorming, so it's not a final concept. I'm going to ask you to just share a little bit. Again, this is just a moment of inspiration. We decided to come up with this idea of like asking questions just because if you really want to keep talking about it, we're thinking of creating an interest group. So we will be happy to keep the conversation going. I hope that this inspired you. I'm just going to randomly ask you, what did you come up with? Can I have your answer? And then you can pass it to the next room.
I'm not sure it's going to answer your question directly, but I think that's what's interesting is because I'm working with Adam Barrelsmore from JISC in the UK to try and set up a complementary, I would say, interest group. And it feels to me like your approach is around how do we use the artistic form to represent data, whereas our approach is about actually how do we work with artistic data and capture it and share it. So it's just a different difference in approach, but yes, I think that's our feedback.
Yeah, I mean, like art as data, sort of, if you've got a dance performance or a song or whatever, that is data in itself, in its own right. We sort of ended up chatting about that a bit.
Yeah, we discussed about the field where I am, that I'm representing. It's material science, and material science is really hard to grasp. I'm a manager in a material science project, and even for me, it's sometimes really hard to grasp. But what could be made accessible is somehow like the knowledge. For instance, you have a car, and the materials in the car are now designed like this and made like this, that the people don't die that much anymore, or that they get not harmed that much anymore, because the materials change a lot, and there is a lot of science behind that. And we thought maybe like with a comparison and something like that attracts the people is a children's car or something that how we can represent it in a way that the people can really understand the concept and really see, okay, that much was changed in the last 50 years or something like that. And the second idea was from the pharmaceutical sciences or pharmaceutical industry, because a lot of there is a lot of research behind, a lot of data also coming in and needed to really develop new medicine and things, but it costs a lot of money. The people often don't understand why this medicine costs a lot of money, because they need to refund basically the research, and maybe there could also be kind of a analogy help. Yeah, I have my income and I have to pay my expenses as a private person, and also the medical institutions and so on, they also need to do this. I don't only talk about pharma industry, but also about the basic research where we need this right there.
I can elaborate a bit more on our background, because we are working in either free electron laser facility or like particle accelerators, and we do a lot of great science there. But the biggest problem we have is that people usually don't get the link between the science to their, let's say, daily life. So for us, it would be very important to educate people and say, hey, whatever you do will end up in your daily life at some point. So this is like really important. And yeah, we thought of like different things because we have a lot of data, like big amounts of data. So it would be nice to showcase not only in images or so on, because that's what our detector is anyway. Have as an output, but it would be nice to link to music or something, like have like different levels of tones or whatever. And then Matthias also had another idea, so I would just pass it on to him.
I was just a random idea about, because my background is also black holes, so I was just thinking about showing a little bit of accretion disk, but it's
Sorry. So we both work in the university, so we were thinking much more about the data, about the university itself, or the data it's actually producing. So something that's much more sort of getting into, you know, all the different areas that we work in, or the volumes of data that we're dealing with, or that side of things. We thought would be really interesting. Yeah.
So we had a variety of topics that we talked about, but I think almost because there were 5 of us. But I think it was more interesting when we talked about the representation type, and we kind of talked about how the graphic visual, like photos, images, it seems like a really good vehicle because it can be very impactful, like it's eye-catching, it's easy to share via the internet, so you don't have just like a localized impact for people to be able to see it. You don't always have to worry then about translation issues. And so we were thinking about like, how do you represent data as different kind of graphical representations? So anybody? Okay.
Well, I see a lot of potential for new ideas for the new, creative use of data into Script. I hope you are interested and you would like to keep doing this with us. We're going to ask RDA if this is something they're up for. And then maybe we can have all of us a conversation soon enough and see what can come out of it. Yes. So, yes, talking about the future, we just did. Would you like to work on creative use of data? Well, you can either ask one of us, or you can just scan this QR code that will lead you to a very, very small survey where we'll just ask you your name and your email address if you're willing to give it to us. And then we will contact you back. Yeah, maybe start this together. So thank you so much for your time today. You will see us around during the day. And I hope you got inspired.